Welcome back to Nothing But Nets. I am joined again by my NBA expert, Nate. We got an interesting one for you today. Brandon Ingram is the lone Pelican who did not show up to the I guess optional mini camp, which everyone else showed up to. Is he expected to be traded? What are your thoughts on that? And then we'll get into the Nets, which may or may not make sense right after that. Is he expecting to be traded? Does he think he'll be gone by the time the season starts? He'll be somewhere else.
He may want to be. That's a lot of money to be moved. um, and I don't know. Again, I don't know where he's going, where they would have enough money and have a better chance to win than the Pelicans. I don't know his exact situation, but I did see what you sent me about the voluntary camp. I don't know to make a lot of that or not, but it does seem like he's somewhat checked out of New Orleans.
They brought in DeJounte Murray in the offseason. You mentioned his playoff performance last year. For a guy that's going to want a max contract at the end of this season, the playoff performance where he was expected to carry the load with Zion with the hamstring injury, what do you make of his? Was it just a bad performance against a really good team, or is it a Julius Randle thing where maybe this guy's not a postseason player? What were your takeaway on that?
Yeah, I compared him more to like a worse Carmelo Anthony of this era that just needs a lot around him to win, that can have great nights in the regular season and can, I heard on you had a couple Nets guys on your show the other night when you were doing it live, and he's a 25-5 guy and this, that, and the other. It's like these stats are all great in the regular season against the Hawks and the Portland Trailblazers. Um, but in the playoffs, is he going to does he elevate his game? It doesn't appear so. Last year was quite brutal, like you just alluded to, with getting swept, shooting, 30%, 20% from three. It was definitely a rough outing for a guy that now wants to make a lot of noise or make no noise by showing up or by not showing up. Um, so yeah, I'm more of he's less than and not as good as Melo of this generation. He doesn't get guys around you better. He's not for the length and the size that he has, he doesn't bother you as much on defense as you would think. He's not Kevin Durant, as you spoke about on the last podcast, which when he was drafted by the Lakers, a lot of people thought he had a ceiling such as KD.
I wanted to ask you about that because he did play well in the play-in games. You're going to say play-in teams that he beat, aren't playoff teams, and he did. I'm trying to pull up his playoff stats right now. I'm an Ingram guy, and you know where I want to come down on this. I want Brandon Ingram here. I'm not even exactly sure why I love Brandon Ingram so much. Like I said, I see a Kevin Garnett type vibe to his game, even though I'm not saying he's Kevin Garnett. He's a long guy, tall guy, long wingspan. He's gotten better defensively. He's no longer an issue defensively. He uses his kind of height and wingspan to his advantage. He's a 3-level scorer that can go for 30 any night. I think he is the quintessential number 2 scorer on a team, on a championship caliber team. You asked me that once before. So do you think you can win a championship with Ingram? If he's your number 2, I absolutely think he can. I wanted to ask you about this. I got a trade I think works for both teams and it matches salaries. Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Day'Ron Sharpe for Ingram. The salaries match. It gets the Pelicans proven playoff guys and Sharpe, and it gets the Nets Ingram.
I would assume they're going to want more than that. I would assume you and I have spoken about from a Nets fan perspective that Cam Johnson you're talking about, not Cam Thomas,
Oh,
is
Cam
somewhat of
Johnson,
a
good. Yeah, yeah.
is somewhat of a liability on the contract that he's on for what he gives you in a playoff series. They would definitely take dough, but you're kind of giving them scraps and matching money with Cam. Otherwise, I would assume you'd probably have to throw in a first round pick. So I could counter that to you if they're countering a first round pick in the next 2 years to get Ingram along with those three players. Would you do that?
Yeah, I'll give you one. I'll give you one of the. I'm not giving you my pick. I'll give you the Knicks pick. I'll give you the Bucks pick. I'll give you know what I'm saying. I'll give you one of those picks for sure. And to me, that was what was so crucial about that Bridges trade, which we disagree on. Is now I have all these picks. I can package these picks together to get a guy. And I think I mentioned Ingram by name when we did our debate. Now I can package these picks together to get a guy like Ingram. So if I need to give you the Knicks pick this year to get that deal done, I would do that.
Yeah, I just see that more as like a lateral move for the Nets. You've moved from a almost a play-in seed to now probably a play-in seed and make the 8 seed with Brandon Ingram over Bridges, and I don't know. I don't I'm you know where I stand with Brandon Ingram, and I don't think he fits on this Nets team and this Nets timeline as the head of the snake, so to speak.
So, because last time we talked, I actually go over under on the net win total, and the over under was 19 and a half. You said more like 25 wins. So to be a play-in team, you're going to need 36, 37 wins. So what you're saying is losing Dorian Finney-Smith, losing Cam Johnson, and gaining Ingram nets you 10 to 12 wins ish.
I could see them as a play-in team. I could definitely see him as a play-in team with Brandon Ingram, Claxton, Cam Thomas as your secondary scorer. God forbid, God forbid Ben Simmons comes back and tries to play for another NBA contract. It's feasible over playing with Cam Johnson right now and Cam Thomas shooting 35 shots a game.
And then this is like, I don't think they're a play-in team. Like I'm looking at the play-in teams, I see Charlotte and I see Toronto and then Atlanta. I still see those teams as better than the Nets. So I can't see the Nets really getting any higher than 12. But let's say you're right and they can be the 10 seed. They get someone else tanks. I don't know. Injuries happen. The Nets get in as a 10 seed. Well, they're not going to make the play-in, right? Because they're not better than Miami or whoever would have that 8 seed. They're not going to get into the playoff. So they're still a lottery team, and they're still going to get a decent pick. But what you realize now is you're much closer than you expected, right? Like a lot of people are expecting the Nets to have the worst record in the NBA. There was a meme comparing the 09 team that went, what was 12 and 70, whatever it was, to this team. And it was like a lively debate on which team was worse. So people have really, really low expectations of this team. If you're telling me I'm going to have all this draft capital, I'm still going to have salary. I'm still going to have all Simmons money coming off the books. I'm going to have money to sign free agents. Plus, I'm going to have my own lottery pick. The Nets are still in good shape at that point, right? Because they're going to have that money to sign. I wouldn't do it this year. I would wait till next year, right? So I would try to get back in the lottery the next 2 years and then try to get Embiid, shoot for Embiid. If that doesn't work, try to get other players.
You're saying to go for BI. You're still saying go for BI.
I'm saying go for BI, right? Yeah, because I think BI is that second piece. Now, the problem is I need to add the first piece. It's like I have Jaylen Brown, now I need to add Tatum. I think Ingram is that guy.
So then what are you doing with Cam Thomas?
Well, this year he's going to start, right? And I don't know. Are they going to fight each other on the court? I don't know. Maybe. But ultimately, I'm going to try to draft a point guard, and then Cam's going to go to the bench, which is where in that Lou Williams role that we discussed, where he's going to play 25 minutes a game and score 20
and
points.
you give him his money to do that.
I think, yeah. I mean, everything has to be within reason. If we're talking $35 million a year, yeah, I'm going to give him a quickly type contract.
I'm not as against that, I guess, as I was a few weeks ago. Especially in this situation where, like you said, he's moving to the bench and he's your Lou Will type scorer, not your playoff go-to guy. Regarding the whole, I don't know, the BI situation, I kind of compare where you said it gets you closer. I kind of compare it to, like, you brought up this name of Julius Randle earlier. Like, the Knicks getting Julius Randle got them closer to where they needed to be because it made them somewhat relevant, but Julius Randle was never going to do anything for you in the playoffs in terms of winning you rounds, winning you multiple rounds. like until a superstar got here, like a top player in the league, and Jalen Brunson arrived to New York, the Knicks were still just going to be this. They were going to be what you're describing, a team that is closer, but they're just going to be a playing team year after year until they add that superstar piece. Where I still think that's what you're sitting where with the Nets. It's you still need to add that superstar piece, but once you get the superstar, everything falls into place. So I'd rather have someone else next to that superstar, just like the Knicks right now would rather have probably someone else next to Jalen Brunson. Julius Randle becomes very redundant in the playoffs. And that's my same argument with BI. Once you get that superstar or they draft whoever next year that's going to be that superstar, and then you can give max money to a real superstar. You mentioned Embiid, and then there's Dylan Harper, Embiid, and then you're filling in the pieces everywhere else versus having BI locking up all of your financial future and then having to grab scraps here and there. We just saw it with the Mavericks. Like they maxed out their money everywhere, and they were missing those superstar role players, and that's probably why they lost the finals. Like there was so much more depth on the Celtics, and that's what the Nets can look forward to by not giving a guy who is just a 20 point a game scorer. And I say that very lightly, max money.
We talk, and I understand Jimmy Butler offers you a lot more than Brandon Ingram, right? I don't know how realistic Jimmy Butler is. Brandon Ingram is realistic. Like, he wants to be traded. He's obviously unhappy. I don't know that he's the perfect fit in this team in New Orleans. So it makes sense that they might want to look to trade him, see what they can, at least put feelers out there.
That doesn't change anything though. Rudy Gobert could be available. That doesn't mean I want to make the move. If I don't like the fit as the Nets, if you don't like the fit as the GM, you don't make the move just because you can go get a guy
let me
can
let me
score
ca-
20
let, let,
points.
let me counter that a little bit. At a certain point, look, Joel Embiid and even De'Aaron Fox to a lesser degree are hypotheticals. I don't know if they have any interest in playing on this team. I know that I can get Ingram, and if I can agree to an extension with them, right, to keep him here during my rebuild, I can get him. Like I always say, it's easier to keep your own player than sign someone else's. Like, the Nets want Embiid. Does Embiid have any interest in coming to the Nets? The Nets want De'Aaron Fox. Does De'Aaron Fox have any interest in coming to the Nets? I don't know the answer to that. I do know that Ingram's available, and I think we have a trade package to bring him in.
Agreed. But Gary, what I'm saying is I don't think Ingram is the guy for the championship, right? I don't think once for that money you're giving him, I don't think he is your number two. That's obviously where we disagree. But I'd much rather stay flexible financially. What was the last time the Nets had a real chance at the NBA Finals?
KD and Kyrie,
And why was that even possible?
because they stay flexible. They
They
can
they
all the
didn't
cap
have
space
a
is on.
Brandon Ingram. They had D'Angelo Russell
I
and
see what you're saying.
and
Yeah,
guys that and young guys and the Joe Harrises and everyone we all know the roster that led them to that play-in season kind of
yeah.
versus being stuck with Brandon Ingram and then it's okay. Obviously, would Kyrie want to come play with Brandon Ingram? No. Would Kevin Durant want to come play with Brandon Ingram? No. Would any major superstar want to play with Kevin Ingram or Brandon Ingram? No. And to my I'll go even further back, Gary. When was the last time, even before that, the Nets had a good chance at the championship?
Oh, the historic KG Pierce Jason Kidd team. The team Jason Kidd was the coach of.
Arguably, I would say you have to go further than that. I don't think they even had a championship. I was going back to the Vince Carter trade, where
Okay.
the Nets had an established superstar in Jason Kidd. Obviously, they tasted the finals a couple times. They added a megastar side by side. Like once they added Vince Carter to Jason Kidd, like that's a type of pairing I want to see. I don't want to see Brandon Ingram with Dylan Harper or whoever it is. I want to see the names I don't have right now that might not we don't know who's available yet. I'd rather stay more flexible than lock in my future to Brandon Ingram where yeah, the Nets might sell second round playoff tickets and that's as far as you'll ever get, as far as the Knicks ever got with Carmelo Anthony, who was a much better player than Brandon Ingram will ever be.
That's for sure. Brandon Ingram has. We're just going to disagree on the value of Brandon Ingram, which I think is ultimately here the tipping point. I think Brandon Ingram is the quintessential number 2 star. I don't know why it's not really working out with Zion. They haven't really been healthy a ton together. I do like that as a combination. I like that a lot. I think they should try it one more year, but then you could lose Ingram altogether, which I don't, for nothing, just lose Ingram. I don't think they want to do that. So I think ultimately they have to move him or risk losing him altogether.
Gary, this is a guy that he's 6'9", he's this, he's that, he's long, he's 3-level scorers. You've got all the terms to go along with him that are flashy, that. But we're talking about a guy who has never averaged 25 points in the league. He's
He averaged
never
damn
shot.
close. He had 24.7. Yeah.
He's never shot. He averaged 20 last year.
He did.
He never shot 40% from 3 in the league. He is a 25-5 scorer that in the playoffs so far barely lives up to that, and hasn't even shown enough to. This is he's a veteran in the league. He's not on his rookie contract anymore. He's 7-8 years into the league. He hasn't won a playoff series. He had CJ McCollum, Zion Williams. They had teams that
He
could have
didn't
won
play
a
with
playoff
Zion.
series.
He did. Zion's been hurt in the playoffs. He didn't
If
play
he's that guy, fine. If he's that guy, he could win a playoff series. We just watched it with Jalen Brunson. Won a playoff series with,
We both agreed
God
Jalen
forbid.
Brunson is way better than Ingram. We both agreed on that. He's not. He'd be a great guy to
Well,
play
to my
with
point is
Brunson.
you need guys that can at least give me a guy that can win a playoff series. Put those two guys together and pair them. We saw with Halliburton won a playoff series. These are the type of guys Halliburton not even put in a much different level than Brandon Ingram in terms of impacting winning the playoffs. And we've had that argument that I don't even love the guy, but it's like I want those guys where teams have to game plan around. You only have to game plan around Brandon Ingram if his shot is on that night, or sometimes he shoots himself out of that game and he doesn't give you enough on the other end. I'm not giving max money to a 25-5 guy who hasn't shown it in the playoffs.
I want to ask you this: the prize possessions are not after this regular season, but after the next one, after the 25-26 season. Would having a guy like Ingram sign long term, would that make you closer or farther away from bringing in a guy like Embiid or De'Aaron Fox? Would they look at that as a guy they want to play with? I can win here, or is it a guy that they're saying
bringing who?
Ingram? Would signing Ingram long term, locking him up for 4 years, would that tempt guys? Would that make you closer or further away from bringing guys in like Embiid or De'Aaron Fox?
No, you're 100% further away. You're 100%. I think I just answered that in my last question. Like the reason why we got KD and Kyrie, like KD wouldn't be here if we had Brandon Ingram on the team. Same Kyrie, KD. Neither one of them would come. Embiid already played. Embiid played with Jimmy Butler, and he was a bad bounce away from being into the finals. And that was prime Jimmy Butler on a team that was really good. And at this point, now he has Paul George next to him and Tyrese Maxey. Like Embiid is not leaving that to go, oh, I'll go win a championship with Brandon Ingram, who got swept like that's not happening.
Well, he would have 2 more years there. I mean, he would have 2 more years with this year and next year before we could entertain the idea of bringing Embiid in, which originally kind of messed with our time frame, right? So we're saying he would leave Paul George. Well, Paul George, I think, is still good, but he's obviously past his prime. 2 years from now, there's not going to be a ton left.
Tyrese Maxey was a better playoff performer than Brandon Ingram ever was.
So okay, and then the other guy would be De'Aaron Fox. Like I think the chance of getting Embiid is like 10%, but until he signs somewhere else, there's a possibility, right? We have the money to sign him.
But if you tell me, I'd rather have De'Aaron Fox next to, Ace Bailey or Cooper Flagg, and then next to superstar Z that also then wants to come because you have, oh wow, Cooper Flagg or Ace Bailey has turned into a top guy on a rookie deal, and now De'Aaron Fox is there, and now Donovan Mitchell. I don't know. You can make up any other. It's the NBA. Guys bounce around, names bounce around every year. I'd rather have that than just being locked into Brandon Ingram. That's not a tradable contract 3 years from now, especially. Again, I think he's just flatlined in terms of his potential and his growth in the NBA. He Brandon Ingram is what he is.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, right? I don't think we disagree. I just think there's a lot more value in that than you do. I think what he offers you, if he gets, and he's 20, he just turned 27 a couple days ago. if that's a finished product, I'm fine with that. Again, it didn't reach the potential that maybe we had for him 3-4 years ago, like when he was at All-Star that year, the first year that he really clicked with Zion. Maybe he didn't get much better, but even plateauing like that, that's still a player that I want. Like, he still offers me a lot of versatility and a lot of scoring. That's a guy I want. Again, I do think that's an ideal second piece. Then it just becomes, can we add the first piece, which is obviously going to be more difficult. But
Can I ask you a question, Gary?
go ahead.
You're talking about trading for BI right now, correct?
I think that, yeah, because I think whoever trades for him is going to want to look to sign him too.
This offseason has been the offseason of what for Nets fans? The trio of Cooper Flag,
Ace
Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper. You don't have that pick right now. You think you have that pick because of the roster you have. You don't automatically have a top 3 pick because you're the Nets. They're going to go through a lottery based on the record that happens this year. You trade for Brandon Ingram, you might very well not be a top 3 seed where you're falling into that lottery where it's kind of an even chance to get the number 1 pick. You very well might have now VJ Edgecombe and Brandon Ingram to go against the Celtics for the next 5 years. That has to add into the equation as well.
Let me ask you this. If you got Cooper Flag and he gave you the level of production, because the only guy I think guaranteed is better than Brandon Ingram is Ace Bailey, right? Like, the only guy, if you said, who do you think is definitely going to be better than BI? The only guy I would definitely say is Ace. So if Cooper Flag gave you Brandon Ingram production 3 years from now, are you happy with Cooper Flag?
I like it because he's on a rookie deal, and I like it because he's already a much better defender than Brandon Ingram will ever be. So if he's giving me 25 and 5 and he's Andre Kirilenko on defense, yeah, I like my chances with that guy with like super duper Mikal Bridges at 6'9" basically versus Brandon Ingram, where again, I'll make the point where if his shot's not falling that night, 40 million for what? So 100%.
I want to ask you this question. De'Aaron Fox is kind of the prized possession we have our eye on in 26. Tank for 2 years, rebuild, get Ace Bailey, Cooper Flag, and then in 2026 sign De'Aaron Fox. And I kind of know how you're going to answer this question. De'Aaron Fox or Brandon Ingram on the same contract, on the same max contract, who would you value more?
Yeah, it's De'Aaron Fox. It's not even close.
We just fundamentally disagree on Brandon Ingram. I'm a big Brandon Ingram guy, and I guess that is.
I've already seen De'Aaron Fox have better playoff series than Brandon Ingram ever has, and he plays the most important position in the league.
You're talking about if De'Aaron Fox's shot isn't falling, what's he really offering you too? Like the same argument that you're making against
he can
Ingram.
attack the basket with the best of them. He's one of the fastest guys in the league. He can play in transition. He's a point guard. Like he can do a lot. He is a 3-level scorer too. He can attack the mid. Like it's the same thing, but yeah, he gives me a lot more other than BI does. And he's shown it in playoff series. I don't have his playoff numbers in front of me, but I know he has.
Just to be fair to BI, in 21-22, they lost in 6 in the first round, but BI averaged 27 points a game on 47.5 and 41% shooting splits. So he's had a good playoff.
Against who?
That was let me look it up for you real quick. I know you.
I saw it the other day, but I bet you it's a team that they should have beaten. That's my point. It's like.
Well, my guess is
he's Carmelo. Like the Knicks should have beaten Carmelo, the Pacers 10 years ago too, and they didn't because he's just a scorer. But yeah, I think he did have 3 or 4 good games.
That was 2020. That was 22. They lost to Phoenix. So Phoenix, they lost to a better team. That's a good team that they lost to.
All right, that's a good team. Fair enough.
To be fair, he has done it, one time in the playoffs in his career. I know he's never gotten out of the first round. Your argument makes sense. He was supposed to carry him last year with Zion out, and he laid an egg. He pulled a Julius Randle. He did absolutely nothing. I understand the argument, but he did have a good series against Phoenix in 2022. To be fair to him, I don't know. There's just something I'm gonna let you go at this. There's just something I like about Ingram. I've always loved Ingram. on the Jet show, we talk about I just like guys like Jameis Winston, right, or Brock Bowers. Like this, there's something about this guy
I hear you, Gary.
really value.
Again, I don't disagree, and I got to run after this, but
Yeah.
I like him too. I don't like him at max money. Max money is top 10, top 15 guys in the league that are going to win you a championship. I don't like him at that value. Just like I don't like RJ Barrett at what he was paid. I like RJ Barrett on a rookie deal, giving me 17 off the bench and a good physical player, blah, 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 blah. But I don't like it at the contract he's on. So value and the money, like Isaiah Hartenstein is so great because of the money he was on last year. If he was a max center, max player, Isaiah Hartenstein's not as great. That's my only point. Where we disagree.
So just so if you're the Nets, if you're Sean Marks, you say no to the proposed trade and signing of Ingram, right? You're out.
Yeah, especially if it can cost me one of my top 3 next year, 100%.
All right, and then what about the other side of that? Would New Orleans entertain that trade, or would they look for more?
They would look for more, but they would definitely keep that. I mean, you're getting Doe, who's gonna fit in there. There's with Zion and Deion, like he's gonna fit in off the ball. He's done it in the playoffs, and then they're probably gonna ask for some draft picks just as security, for giving up a player like that. But they would entertain something with that foundation like that.
All right, Nate, appreciate your time. I know you got to run. I'm gonna end things now. We'll do this again, and hopefully next time Brandon Ingram is in that. I appreciate your time.
Hopefully not. My pleasure.
From Texas to the world, thank you, and God bless.